Hello everybody, it's time to get wibbly wobbly, timey wimey, because we are talking Doctor Who Series 13, The Flux. If you haven't seen Series 13, you probably shouldn't be watching this review, but maybe, you know what, you can get in your TARDIS and you can travel back to watch it after you watch the review. I don't know, time travel's confusing. So in this season, I actually really liked this series overall, but we're gonna talk a little bit more about the nitty gritty of it. I'm gonna give you a synopsis, we'll talk about the good, we'll talk about the bad, and then I'll give you my full final thoughts on Series 13. By the way, I've also caught up on all the Doctor Who up to this point, so I can now also give you my opinion on this with the full knowledge of all of modern Doctor Who. So, yay! And I can't wait to talk to you about the new specials. But before we do that, I want to talk to you about all of the Jodie Whittaker stuff, because I have watched all of it. So in The Flux, this is basically a very concrete season. It's only 6 episodes, and that apparently has to do with the pandemic was going on when they were filming it. So, I mean, it really did mess with a lot of, I think, Jodie Whittaker's time as the Doctor, which is unfortunate, because although there's some stuff that I don't like from her time as the Doctor, I like her as the Doctor. And I feel like she got overshadowed by all of the issues that we had with Doctor Who around this time, which is unfortunate because I think she's amazing. This season is about a universe ending event where like basically the whole universe is going to end because of the threat of the flux, which kind of looks like time dust that's chasing you, and if it gets to you, then it just destroys you. We're also dealing with Swarm and Azure. So Swarm and Azure are these aliens that were basically trapped, and they get out and they're here to get revenge on the Doctor, because although the Doctor doesn't remember, they apparently have a past. And they want to do something even worse than destroy the universe. Their goal is actually to trap the universe in its own destruction forever on a time loop. So like the universe will just keep ending again and again and again and reliving that experience. Yeah, sounds pretty bad. Also in this season, we have Weeping Angels, we have Sontarans, we have Cybermen, we have Daleks, a whole bunch of stuff going on top of all of that. There's also the Lupari. We also get a new companion with Dan, and there are some pretty cool allies along the way. Vinder and Bell, I'm looking at you, but also Claire and Jericho, also very cool. So there's lots of cool people to meet, and even a historical adventure or two kind of sprinkled in, which I enjoy. You know me, I love a good historical adventure in Doctor Who. But it all ties back in to the core of the season, which, like I said, is The Flux, which is also the name sort of the season. And that's something that I really liked about it, because I think when you have 6 episodes, you need to keep it tight, you know? And when you have like 12 or 13 episodes, you can have these fun one-off adventures, but with 6, I think the main through line of the story really has to be woven into every single episode. And they did that, and I think they did it pretty well. Although I will say, I went back to read through a summary just to refresh my memory, because it's been like a week or so, a couple weeks maybe, since I finished Series 13. And man, there is some stuff in here that just sounds so bogged down in time travel goopla that, yeah, I think explaining this to someone who doesn't watch Doctor Who or know anything about it would be a mistake. This series would not be a good one for them, I think, to intro on, because there's just so much going on and it feels like a lot having revisited it. But when I watched it, I loved that it was a lot. I didn't think it was too much when I was watching it, but going back and reading it, it might be too much. And before I talk about sort of how I feel about, you know, some of the good stuff, some of the bad stuff, just a friendly little reminder, if you enjoy the video, if you enjoy when I talk about Doctor Who, let me know. Like, subscribe, it really does help me, it really does feed the algorithm, and I appreciate it. And I just appreciate you spending your time being here with me. Time is precious, unless you have a TARDIS, and then you can go anywhere, anytime you want. And if you're a Time Lord, because then you have lots of regenerations. One of the things that I liked about the season, other than the fact that it's, you know, all one major storyline throughout, I really liked some of the characters that we get. I really like Vinder and Vinder's backstory with sort of the Great Serpent, and he was serving the Great Serpent. He had to make this hard choice to do the right thing or just like be a loyal sort of guard. But the Great Serpent is this like alien dictator from like another world, and Vinder decided to basically like rat on him, so he got sent to this outpost. He's got a little story with Belle, who's also his partner, his life partner, and she, when the flux is going on, is separated and is trying to find him. And he was obviously also sent away, so they've been separated for a long time. And she is searching for him during the course of the flux. Well, we get to see her just dealing with peril after peril as she flies around the universe looking for him. Which is also a really cool little side story, but it's a side story that ties into stuff because Vinder ends up at the sort of time temple with Yaz, and that's how they kind of meet each other, and then Vinder kind of gets pulled into the story. And then later we meet Belle, and then it's really fun when you also realize that Belle has been looking for Vinder. We already met Vinder, and we get to follow the story of these two. And also they're cool little allies that will appear later on as well, which I enjoyed. I enjoy a good callback, especially a good ally or companion callback. There's also a historical episode in this season, like I said. There's a few moments where we touch on history. War of the Sontarans, which sort of centers around the Crimean War, but instead of Russians, the Sontarans have basically invaded the timeline and are trying to make it so that they can like take over Earth by going into the past and infiltrating it and replacing the Russians, which is pretty cool. We also have some pretty cool stuff, I think, happening with our companions. Dan being a new companion, and Yaz being a returning, established companion. We do get a little bit more into just what's going on with them and getting to know Dan, and I do appreciate that this series does have time to explore the companion stories. It doesn't feel like they get shorted. It doesn't feel like anything is rushed with them, and that is something that I appreciate throughout the season. I really love Swarm and Azure as well as villains. I feel like they're very scary, they're very threatening, and I love their design, honestly. The design of them was amazing. I believed the threat of them and them potentially destroying, well, I mean, the universe was already being destroyed by the flux, but just them sort of using that flux to make the universe be destroyed forever. They can kill you by like touching you, and that to me, I was like, our companion's gonna die. It does happen. It does happen. And I wasn't sure if it was gonna happen in this series. We also get a little bit of exploration of the Doctor and her character and her trying to delve into her past. We get a little return of the fugitive Doctor, which you know I'm a big fan of. So I appreciated that. But at the end of the day, I do feel like I would have appreciated maybe some more exploration of the Doctor's past. Like, we built up this crazy change to the canon where the Doctor has had who knows how many lives. We thought we first met the Doctor at the beginning of the show, because the first Doctor was not the first incarnation. There were many other incarnations before that. We don't even know how many. And yet, really, we only get the fugitive Doctor throughout Jodie's time as the Doctor, and throughout, like, we get this revelation, and then it kind of just feels like it doesn't really go anywhere. We also get Tech Taeun, who's in here, who is the Doctor's, like, adoptive mother. Tech Taeun is revealed to be the person behind the division, which I did like that idea. I thought it was a little weird, though, that she was like, yeah, so we're gonna, like, destroy the universe just to get to you. That was the whole plan. Like, they created the flux. It was, like, part of their plan to get to the Doctor, because the Doctor used to work for the division. But the Doctor doesn't remember that so well, because she doesn't remember her past incarnations. As soon as we meet Tech Taeun, which, like, that's a whole weird plot point. But then the other part of it is that we meet Tech Taeun, and then you're like, okay, are we gonna explore this relationship or something? No, Tech Taeun is, like, immediately killed. So that, I feel like, is a missed opportunity here. And, like, overall, like I said, there's a lot of stuff I did love about the season, but I guess, you know, that's definitely something that I feel like they missed. I feel like it also just has too many villains. And this is the hard thing, because I understand they're trying to build this one sort of through line for the season, and we're just focusing on that. So we're not going to have these little episodes where we just go and have fun adventures and there's weird, different beasts that we come up against. But at the same time, we got too many villains in here, okay? And the issue that I have is that it just feels like every time we get to the end of a season with Whittaker's doctor, we're bogged down in enemies. Like, it's like everything is coming. Everything is so big. Like, not every event has to be that big. Some of them can be small and still feel meaningful. In fact, I think when you scale back, it can actually feel more meaningful. So although the end of this, like, really this season for me started very strong, and then it kind of gets to a point, I would say probably around episode 4, so like the second half of this season, that it just kind of gets a little bit bogged down in too many things, which is also interesting because those are also the production blocks. So it could also have to do with, I don't know, the direction maybe. Maybe that's part of it, because that is how it was divided up for filming, I think. Oh no, never mind. It wasn't. So they filmed like 1, 2, and 4, and then they filmed 3, 5, and 6. Yeah, I really do like episode 3, Once Upon a Time. And even Village of the Angels is all right. I would say near the end of Village of the Angels, where we get into the division, is where it falls apart. And I think just if you wanted to have the division be a part of this, it would have been better to build that in sooner. This is kind of my issue, I guess, with Chris Chibnall's Doctor Who in general, is I just feel like there's stuff that just pops up that doesn't feel like it was properly built in. And I know that there's other plot points that are built up from the beginning. So it's really weird when just random things pop up and you're like, where was this at the beginning though? There was like no inclination of this. Instead of feeling like a cool like twist, it kind of feels like you're undermining your own story, because now you're adding in this other big element that we already have so much going on. So yeah, when the division showed up, like, I do like the idea of the division and Tech Taeun and her being behind the division and the doctor having worked there as the fugitive doctor. I like all of that, but just the way it was woven in, like, kind of threw me for a loop, and just too many villains. Also, at the end of the season, we literally defeat, you know, not just the Daleks and the Cybermen, but also the Sontarans. And of course, we also defeat Swarm and Azure, and the Flux is basically defeated because we feed it the Daleks, the Cybermen, and the Sontarans. But then in the very next special, the next special is Eve of the Daleks. So everything was destroyed. Only for everything to come back. Do you know what I'm talking about? That's what it always feels like when we make things that big. You can't just get rid of a massive foe and then have one appear like immediately. And I know it could just be like 2 different groups of Daleks or something, but I don't know. That was supposed to be like the whole Dalek army. Like, we build everything up to be a little bit too big for it to be logical. And then the stakes get cheated. And so that is the part that was disappointing to me. But overall, I will say, I do think I more enjoyed this season than didn't enjoy it. It was a bit much. I would have dialed it back personally if I were in charge. Not that I think I'll ever be in charge of Doctor Who, but hey, you never know. Maybe someone will call me one day and say, Amanda, you want to write Doctor Who? And I'll be like, that sounds like a lot of pressure. But I feel like other than the fact that it was a little too grandiose, I did like a lot of the character stuff that we did in the season. Other than, as well, at the end, just the Doctor then having access to all of her past lives. And what does she do with it? She's like, I'm just going to hide this in the TARDIS. I don't want to know, actually. I don't want to know who I am. I don't need to know. Even though the whole time she was like, I need to know who I am. I don't know who I am. Seems a little contradictory, but I get it. We don't want to explore it. It's a lot. We wrote it to be a lot, though. We you know, that choice was made for us. So it's interesting you'd write that and then just be like, we're not going to explore it. Anyways, there's 3 specials left with Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. Bittersweet ending. I hope that she comes back one day to play the Doctor again, because I really would love to see her reappear, because I really did love her Doctor, but it was such a weird time. It's such a weird time. Anyways, that's the last like full season with Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. Then we have 3 specials, and then we go into the next specials with Tennant. So I'm very excited about that. I'll see you in the next Doctor Who review, where we talk about Eve of the Daleks. But until then, my friends, stay timey-wimey, and as always, stay nerdy.